Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, hare-rama, hare-rama, Rama-Rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krišna, Hare Krišna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asidhara Sidhu Shri Shriman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paschatyade Siddharane Om Ayana Tivanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Padakamalam Shigaram Vaishnavam Scha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhanu Sudhadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 15. Savasya chaham ridi sanavishto matak smritir jnanam aponam cha vedaischa savaraham eva vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanivishto Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedaischa Savaraham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sarvishto Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedanta Javaham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanivishto Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedaischa Savaraham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham. Ladies. Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanivishto Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedaischa Savaraham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham. Sarvasya, of all living beings, Cha and Aham, I, Riddhi, in the heart, Sanivishta, situated, Mataha, from me, Smriti, remembrance, Jnanam, knowledge, Abhonam, forgetfulness, Cha, and Vedai, by the Vedas, Cha, also, Sarvai, all, Aham, I am, Eva, certainly, Vedyaha, knowledgeable, Vedanta Krit, the compiler of Vedanta, Vedavid, the knower of the Vedas, Eva, certainly, Cha, and Aham, I. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas. Please repeat. I am seated in everyone's heart. And from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Purport. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from Him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is the witness to all his work. Therefore he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruit results. He is worshipable not only as an impersonal Brahman. It seems like everyone has a cold or something. Okay. the Supreme Personality Godhead and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to prepare to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, and the giver of knowledge in the form of Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. As God is all good, God is all merciful. Antak pravishta shasta jananam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So not only does the living entity enjoy or suffer in this world, according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord, situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. When it's serious about understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yo so saravai vedai giyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta, Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By the performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is obtained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra 114 attained confirms this in the following words. Tat tu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages. By understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing the different processes one approach him, in the end one can obtain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. So verse again, Sarvasicham Hridi Sanavishto Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedaischa Savarham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krid Vedavid Eva Chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyate Satarane. Sometimes there's a discussion about where the jiva came from, or whether we came from the spiritual world, or we came from the Brahmajyoti, or we come from Slovenia. But actually, we're never apart from Krishna, because as explained here, right now we can't do anything without Krishna's help. In order to observe this world, we need Krishna to inform us what's going on. In other words, Krishna has to supply all of the entities, including ourselves, intelligence, because without intelligence we can't understand things. And he also supplies the three modes of material nature and the intelligence to understand what they are and what's going on. In other words, the material nature is supplied by Krishna, the three modes are supplied by Krishna, and Krishna's super soul within our heart gives us remembrance and knowledge and forgetfulness. Just like if we want to remember something, either the remembrance comes or it doesn't come. And if it doesn't come, some remembrance will be there. Sometimes we want to remember something we can't, and sometimes we want to forget something we can't. Sometimes we try to understand things and we can't, and sometimes we can't understand anything. And sometimes the realization, the understanding, some realization comes spontaneously, and suddenly we understand things much more clearly. So who's supplying that? That's the question. Are we doing it ourselves? Because if we were doing it ourselves, why don't we just remember whatever we want to? Have a little cabinet in our brain and store everything we want to remember. And when we want to remember it, we just go to that little cabinet and search for it and find it. And then we find it. And then we can remember. So who's actually directing the wanderings of all living entities? As Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantarudani maya. The Supreme Lord is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material nature. Krishna has already explained that we're not this body, and therefore we can understand that the different combinations and permutations of the material nature are actually not ourselves. Just like we're not this table, I don't think anyone's going to, or you're sitting there on the floor. Does anyone say a hum floor? Does anyone think that they're the floor? Anyhow, if you do, there's some people with white coats waiting outside for you. People would not think it was quite rational if we say we're the floor. But what's the difference between our body and the floor? It's made out of the same elements. The floor has some solidity, like this table has some solidity. It has some water, which keeps it together. It has some fire, otherwise it would be freezing. There must be some warmth in the floor. And there's some air. There's some very slight movement in the floor. And there's, of course, space. So that's the same elements that are in our body. But we don't think we're the floor, we don't think we're the wall. So similarly, the body is just another experience we're having. And we hate this body is always changing. So along with the changing body, we have a changing experience. Our subtle and gross bodies always change, and so our gross and subtle experiences are always changing. But we're not changing. But in order to understand this, we require knowledge. Just like if you told a dog, you're not your body, what would he do? Hopefully he wouldn't get angry and bite you. Get insulted. What do you mean I'm not this body? But the dog is also a soul in a body, a changing body, but he can't understand. But a human being should have intelligence, be able to understand how the body is changing, but how the person within the body is not changing. Now we should also be able to understand that there's another person in everyone's heart giving us intelligence. Just like a little ant crawling on the ground, the ant is looking for sugar. Of course, this year I didn't see very many ants. They seem to have given up on us. Did you see very many ants this year? Last summer, they were kind of, usually in my room there's full of ants. They come on pilgrimage. What's that? They're what? They're down where? Oh, they're in the kitchen. Oh, I guess they figure they get better service down in the kitchen than in my room. They finally figured it out. I'm sure they had a much better time in the kitchen. I wasn't very kind to them, to tell you the truth. In any case, Krishna is giving the ant intelligence. That's why they went down to the kitchen. I mean, if you want to eat, devotees usually don't come to my room to eat. They go to the kitchen. So the ants finally figured out by Krishna's mercy. So similarly, if we want to find a Mahasweet, Krishna will also give us the intelligence, but not as much intelligence as he'll give to an ant. So all living entities are being supplied by Krishna with intelligence, and also an ant. If an ant thought that in my previous lifetime I was a multi-billionaire ruling a planet, and now I'm an ant, it'd actually be quite depressed. You'd see a very depressed ant. Don't be so, what's wrong, my dear little ant? Oh my God, look at my position now. I lost everything. I had such good investments. I worked so hard. Everything was going all right. Now I'm an ant. Oh my God. Is there a God? How can this happen to me? I was a good person. Now I'm an ant? This is unfair. I want a refund. So if the ant was remembering what its past life was, it would become very depressed. And if we couldn't forget what our past life was like, we'd become quite depressed too. If we remembered all the time what we were doing in the past, how could we be a devotee? So Krishna is giving all living entities remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, including ourselves. So there's another person in our heart with us, and he's acting like a father gives direction to the son, or the teacher gives direction to the student. So that teacher, that father for everyone, is the super soul within our heart, guiding all living entities, including ourselves. Now the problem is that we take credit for what we're remembering, or what we think we know. But actually, if we recognize it's the super soul who's guiding us and giving us the required remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, then we have much more appreciation for Krishna. If we can't appreciate Krishna, who's helping us at every moment, and how he's helping us, how are we going to appreciate the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The person is so close to us, giving us so much remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, then how, if we don't appreciate that, how are we going to appreciate how Krishna has put the sun in the sky, how he's put the moon in the sky, how he's supplying water to quench our thirst? If we can't appreciate how Krishna, who's right next to us in the heart, how he's helping us, how are we going to appreciate how Krishna is doing so many other things for us? Therefore, we should recognize and acknowledge that there's no combination possible of material elements that will produce life. On the other hand, for us to even understand that requires the help of the super soul. That Krishna is so kind, he's giving us knowledge, and if we accept real knowledge, he'll remind us of who we actually are and what's actually going on here. And then we can desire to act appropriately. Because unless we see things properly, how can we desire to act appropriately? So therefore we can see that there are three things in this world. There's matter, there's spirit, and there's super spirit. So our free will actually consists in either orientating our desire towards the ignorant misconception of misidentifying ourselves with this gross and subtle body, or orientating ourselves toward the true conception of identifying ourselves as the servant of Krishna, and acting accordingly. Now we cannot imagine that the Supreme Spirit super soul who's in everyone's heart, his only activity is simply supplying knowledge and forgetfulness and remembrance to the conditioned soul. He must have some other activities beyond this material energy. And those are explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, how Krishna has another abode, the spiritual abode, where he's engaged in ever blissful pastimes with his ever liberated associates. And therefore the Bhagavad Gita says, Bonam janmanamante, jnanamam prapadyate, vasudeva sarvamiti, sarmahatma sudurlabha. After passing through many births and deaths, one who is actually knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is actually rare. In other words, to actually accept the intelligence of Krishna consciousness, which Krishna is very happy to give us, requires going through a lot of experience in the material world and giving up the idea that it would be nice to become the supreme here, the controller and the enjoyer, and more or less become the nimitra matram vavasavasachin, try to become Krishna's instrument, and try to pray to Krishna for the intelligence so that we can make advancement in devotional service. That as Prahlad Maharaj said, his only actual desire, the only benediction he wanted, is how to become more steady and more enthusiastic about service. And that's what Krishna wants to give us, the intelligence how to become more steady and more enthusiastic in our service to Krishna. And that's the whole goal of the Vedas. Yo mam eva masamudo janati purushottama sasarvavit bhajante mam sarva bhavena bharata. This is the most, one who knows me is the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting, is said to be the knower of everything, and therefore he engages himself in full devotional service without any doubt. Iti guyatama shastram, idam yuktva mayanaga, etam bhutva buddhimatsat, kritastra bharata. That this is the most confidential part of all the Vedic literature. That anyone who knows this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So don't tell anyone this is supposed to be confidential knowledge. Don't tell anyone that service to Krishna is the most confidential part of knowledge. If it gets too much known, then everyone's going to engage in devotional service, and we can't feel proud that we're devotees anymore, because everyone's going to be a devotee. We'll just be an ordinary devotee, not a superstar. There won't be anyone to look down upon, because all will only have people to look up to. Then our whole adventure in the material world to become God will be destroyed. But this is the confidential part of knowledge. Luckily, even if we tell people about it, they won't accept it. So it's so confidential that even you show it to people and explain it to them, they still won't accept it because it's too confidential. It's like a secret that even if you shout it, no one will hear it. But we're trying to get people to, by the mercy of Prabhupada, the mercy of our acharyas and Krishna, we're trying to distribute this most confidential knowledge. Therefore Lord Chaitanya comes and tries to force people to become Krishna conscious through the loud chanting of Hare Krishna. That the most confidential knowledge is to engage in service to Krishna, to associate with Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is forcing people to associate with Krishna, even though they don't want to, by the loud chanting of the holy names. Because people cover their ears sometimes. They try to avoid the holy name. But still the devotees just chant louder. Just like that famous story of Hiranyakashipu. We know Hiranyakashipu wanted to become immortal and rule over all the demigods, the whole universe. So he went with to perform austerities in a holy place. And he began his austerity standing on the tip of his toes. And he was going to fast for 120 years of the demigods until he got the mercy of Brahma to make him immortal. But the demigods heard about that, and Narada Muni and Parvata Muni agreed that they'd spoil Hiranyakashipu's austerity. So they became two sparrows. And when Hiranyakashipu was standing with his arms upraised, then the two sparrows came and in a loud voice started to chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is the last thing that Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear. So he took a rock and threw it at the birds. And they flew away. And went back to his austerity. So again, with his arms upraised, trying to meditate on Brahman or something, the sparrows came again. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, in a loud voice. So Hiranyakashipu's mind became very disturbed, took another rock and threw it at them. So this went on all day long. Hiranyakashipu was trying to go into his austerity. The birds are coming, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He's throwing rocks at them. And he said, forget it. It's been a terrible day. I think I'll start my austerity tomorrow. So his mind was so agitated because all he could think about was Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. All he could think about was Vasudeva. That's the thing was going through his mind. He couldn't forget Vasudeva, his worst enemy. So he went home and he thought, well, let me enjoy with my wife, maybe I'll forget. So that night he tried to enjoy with his wife, and because he was thinking about Vasudeva the whole time, therefore Prahlad Maharaj was born, because he was thinking about Krishna when he conceived his son. So that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. People don't want to hear about Krishna. Narada Muni's mercy, Parvata Muni's mercy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is following the same thing, getting us to loudly chant Hare Krishna, so people can't help but remember Krishna to some extent. And that's the whole purpose of the Vedas. That's the whole thing. That's why we're struggling so hard. Somehow or another, remember Krishna. That's why the deities so nicely have come, the holy name has come, these books have come, even Prasadam has come. So somehow or another, we can remember Krishna and make some advancement. And that's the whole simple philosophy of Krishna consciousness. That's why Krishna is trying to help us. Beep, beep, I'm here, remember me. Keep quiet. I got other things to do. Don't disturb me. No, I want to help you. No, stop. But somehow or another, if we can, by hook or crook, if we remember Krishna, then our life will become successful. And eventually we'll find out how sweet Krishna is, how lovable Krishna is. And we won't be able to forget him, even if we want to. Like the gopis. They're angry at Krishna, seemingly angry at Krishna sometimes. They want to forget him. But Krishna is so sweet, they have so much love for him. Even if they want to forget him, they can't do it. And now we're trying to remember Krishna. Even if we want to, we can't do it. But one day, by purification, by advancement, by experience, we'll also come to that platform where Krishna will become so sweet, remembrance of him, associating with him, it'll be impossible to forget him. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Now everyone's deeply absorbed in meditating on Krishna. Before everyone was sneezing and coughing, and then when you ask for a question, everyone gets into deep silence, meditating on what to ask. Okay, Krishna didn't supply any questions. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Ma Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.
Cheto darpana marjanam